we gather in this sacred space, made more sacred in this moment by the presence and attention of each and every one of us. Last week, our Easter service was attended by live stream by folks living nearby and logging on from Connecticut, Florida, Maine, New York, Tennessee, Vermont, and Virginia. Wherever you are logging in from this morning, we are glad you are here. In a spirit of welcome, I invite those who are gathered here in the sanctuary to greet those from home by turning towards the camera near the welcoming congregation banner and offer your greeting from right where you are. And those here in the sanctuary, let's take a moment to turn and greet one another.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Stephen Parapelic. Harris Gibson and I are today's worship associates, and it's so good to be with you this morning, both in the sanctuary and virtually. Welcome to your joy, your hope, your pride, as well as your grief, your fear, and your anger, even the parts of you that are not ready to be seen and heard. Thank you for joining us. We who strive to share a teaching of hope and peace, we welcome all in our doors, the joyful, the heartbroken, atheists and Christians, Muslims and Jews, straight and gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, all who are searching, seeking, looking for more meaning, service, and love. Whether it's your first worship service with us or your several hundredth time, we hope that you'll discover questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly and living justly. Together, we are a caring community devoted to spiritual growth, social transformation, and environmental responsibility. Now, after worship, all are invited to coffee, refreshments, and conversation in the Sims room. Those wanting to remain masked are invited to linger in the pews. If you are not eating or drinking, though, please consider remaining masked while socializing in the sanctuary. You've probably realized our director of music, John Kramer, is out of town this Sunday, and we are delighted to welcome to the sanctuary Joe Mulholland. Joe is a tremendously accomplished. Thank you for being here, Joe. He's a tremendously accomplished pianist, composer, and educator. And fun fact I learned this morning, as former chair of the Harmony Department at Berklee College of Music, Joe hired John Kramer to his position there. Welcome. And now Donna Reed, one of our leaders of the epic Not Your Average Rummage Sale effort, has a special announcement.
Good morning. I am Donna Reed, and hello to everybody out there in the virtual world. I first came to WUS as a helper. Judy Murray was a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, and she told me she was in charge of the books, and did I want to help? And I came, and I had so much fun that I have never left. So a little plug, invite your friends. If you have friends that you think might be willing to help, we have lots of shifts still open. And as I was thinking about this announcement this morning, I was thinking, it reminded me of the book Horton Hears a Who. Who here has read Horton Hears a Who? Oh, good, most of you. Okay, so for those who have never read it, there's a tiny little world on a speck of dust, and Horton, who has big ears, can hear the people down in the town. And But the mean kangaroos cannot hear the little people. And they are threatening to take the speck of dust and boil it in bezel nut oil. And so Horton pleads with the mayor down on the speck. So call a big meeting, get everyone out, make every who holler, make every who shout, make every who scream. If you don't, every who is going to end up in a bezel nut stew. And so this morning I am saying, so call a big meeting, get everyone here, and beg all the who's to all volunteer. And if you won't be here the week before or the days of, please come talk to me. There are other ways that you can help. We're going to have to buy some racks for the clothes and stuff. So if you have any questions at all, please come see me. Thank you. Sorry. And now let us open our hearts and minds to the spirit of worship.
We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place. The wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. The coalition of indigenous tribes, including the Massachusetts, the settlers, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours.
Pardon me. I now invite Jeremiah to come up to light our chalice. We dedicate the chalice with words by Kate McPhee, who is a former member of our youth group called Wussy G. Around us, light is returning. It rekindles the spirit of life in the skeleton of trees. It brings forth new shoots from the soil. It wakes us from winter slumber and invites us to see what lies beyond. We light this chalice in the spirit of our Earth's awakening and to reaffirm our commitment to the value of our home. Now please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing our opening hymn, number 21 in the Gray Hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth.
I would like to invite all those who are interested, who are young and young at heart, to come forward for a story. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. So, today we're doing something really special. We are going to bless our youth group participants who are going off to do a service project. And I want to ask you, show of hands for everyone here and everyone out there, who has taken part in some service projects. And I'm going to ask you which ones. Hold on. All right, so if you made mittens for the Mitten Tree Project or took a mitten and purchased some gifts for the Mitten Tree Project, raise your hand. Excellent. If you took part in the Guest at Your Table fundraiser, Zara, you did that. Raise your hand. Zara was looking a little unsure. If you shared in the project, the Build-A-Bed project at First Church Congregational, raise your hand. And if you helped with our Make a Blanket service project, raise your hand. Excellent. So all of these are wonderful projects that we do as a community, because here in this community, service to others is a big priority for us. And so you start out with these projects, and then when you get bigger, you'll go out into the world on overnights, and you will do even more service and make a wider circle of service and community in your world. So I'm going to hand it over to Reverend Heather, who's going to say some words.
Actually, I'm going to hand things over to Sam, who's going to say some words. Come on up, Sam and youth who are participating in the service trip. Let's line up on the stairs here.
These 5 youth and 7 others who are probably still packing, and 4 of us adults will be spending the week living in southwestern Rhode Island and working at various sites in the quiet corner of Connecticut. We will be staying at a homestead whose mission is to offer environmentally responsible hospitality to churches and nonprofit organizations seeking to make a positive impact in the world. They are an outdoor ministry of the United Church of Christ. During the day, we will be partnering with Community Kitchens, a locally run organization who provide healthy and nutritious meals to all who come through their doors, 5 days a week at various sites in the area. They are committed to improving the quality of life of those they serve, restoring their dignity, and working to end food insecurity in their community. As per our own mission, we will be there to be of service to them however they see most fit, and we will also be spending time learning about food insecurity, fostering connections with each other in our spirituality, and thinking about how this week might catalyze change in our lives and subsequently in the world. We are so grateful to this congregation for all of their support in helping to make this transformative week happen for all of us.
Last week, we gave everyone in worship a tulip bulb and an invitation to bring new life into being through our attention and care. This week, we are doing something similar. This week, we are sending members of our community out into the world in hopes of serving the promise and possibilities of life. Our youth and their adult chaperones are like bulbs we are tending or seeds we are planting in hopes of creating something new in our name. This new thing will be the feeding of people who need food, but will also be things we cannot necessarily see: hope, dignity, respect. So we would like to offer a blessing to this year's service trip crew as a way to thank them for their labors and to pray for safe travels. We all have a role to play in this blessing. So Brenna is going to demonstrate the blessings that we will do through simple hand movements. And through these blessings, we will offer the blessings to the group. And we ask our service trip crew to open your hands to receive these blessings, or at least open your heart as you're being blessed. So Brenna will demonstrate. Seeds and people need warmth. We invite those gathered to open your arms like the sun, to bless the service trip team with our warmth. Seeds and people need to be nourished. We invite those gathered to wiggle your fingers like rain, to bless the service trip team with our nourishing waters. Seeds and people need care and love. We invite those gathered to make a heart and to send your love forward, to bless the service trip team with our care. Before our youngest friends head to their religious education activities, I would like us to do just one more thing. Let us pause and remember that you, our youngest friends, will one day grow into people who leave this sanctuary and serve others in our name. You, too, are seeds. You will grow one day and be ready to take part in the next chapter of learning how to live a life of service. We hope the warmth and nurture and love that we give you now helps you take part in your current service work. With this in mind, I invite you to leave for religious education, and I invite you, the congregation, to sing them out and sing our service trip team back to their pews. The song is printed in your order of service. I now invite us into a time of centering, first through words, and then through a ritual, kindling of the light, a time to light a candle here in the sanctuary or at home to signify a joy or sorrow you carry within. At that time, if you would like a candle brought to you, please raise your hand. After we kindle the light, we'll be together during a time of shared silence. And out of the silence, we will sing hymn number 15 in the gray hymnal, The Lone Wild Bird. This morning's meditation, Let Our Table Stand Like an Altar, is by Lillian Nye. She writes, I do not mean to present myself as some kind of bodhisattva of compassion. However, in my better moments, at least in my more conscious moments, while I'm eating, I do try to imagine the lives and even the deaths of the creatures who nourish me. I try to think of the freedom and exhilaration of the wild Atlantic salmon leaping from a frigid mountain stream. I try to imagine its distress as it's pulled from the water. I try to imagine the big, soft eyes of the dairy cow hooked up to the milking machine and wonder if her udders are sore or if her legs ache. I try to imagine the bright red gold eye of the hen who produced the beautiful brown eggs I'm breaking into my cast iron pan, and remember that her laying days will be numbered. Such thoughts may seem perverse, but simply remembering these beings seems to be one of the few ways I can express my indebtedness to them. Wendell Berry mentions that the thought of the calf contentedly grazing in the good pasture flavors the steak, that such knowledge calms and relieves and frees the eater. Since I cannot always be the purist I might like to be, I try to integrate even the awareness of suffering into my eating meditation. It is part of the energy that I'm ingesting, and I feel some responsibility to recognize it. Imagine we are going to eat something that we've prepared at home using a number of ingredients, including some prepared foods that come in bottles or cans or boxes. Imagine all of the hands that have participated in bringing food to the table for this one meal. Who are the faceless hundreds who planted and harvested, who cleaned and packaged and canned, who shipped and stocked, who perhaps combined and repackaged, and shipped a second or third time, then stocked the supermarket, ran the cash register, and bagged our groceries? If we also imagine the extended network of relationships that sustain the farming, factory, and freight industries, that web of connections reaches out indefinitely in our global economy. So many hands, so many faces, so many stories, now connected to your own because you decided to use raisins or bananas or salmon, a European cheese or coffee or soy sauce. Consider the migrant workers who harvest so many of our table fruits and vegetables. Their labor is indispensable to the farming industry, yet they are some of the poorest, most powerless, and most exploited people living within the borders of our nation. Part of being spiritually open is simply understanding that our lives, our blood, our beating hearts live because we are sustained by other lives. The great life force flows without interruption through everything. Being conscious of these realities deepens our thanksgiving, would that we could live without taking or using lives, but we cannot. Therefore, let our eating be an act of worship. Let our table stand like an altar. Let us now kindle the light. Amen.
Ron Finley is the leader of the Ron Finley Project. He's a resident of South Central Los Angeles. In that city, the land between the street and the sidewalk in front of his home was neglected and littered with trash. In 2010, he decided to turn it into an urban garden as a way of better care of the earth and to provide fresh food for his neighborhood and for those other many people who lived in this food desert. For this, he received a citation from the city. Finley notes that there's meaning in the city permitting neglected and contaminated land for the use of the Black and Latino community, but restricting the residents from tending the earth and feeding themselves seemed untenable. Finley then worked with the city council to change the ordinance and permit parkway farming. The following video illustrates what Finley has created and has shared with the philosophy and his vision. Note, there are two words in this video that are not part of the usual worship vocabulary. One appearing on the screen and the other is briefly spoken. As these words of modern vernacular and are not explicit or violent, and we've likely heard or read these words somewhere along our way, even this morning. It seems better not to edit these words out, but to leave them in the video as created. Let us now visit Ron Finley's garden.
What's the first thing I do when I get to the garden? I inhale. I take the view in. I take the colors in. I take the smells in. It puts you at peace. To be able to see, to come out and see beauty. If you're going to talk about creative, you can't get more creative than Mother Nature. You can choose the asphalt and the concrete and the blight, or you can choose beautiful colors, and beautiful flowers. Putting in a garden, that's a major step into being creative because you designed this for you. What do you want it to look like? We're all creatives. The fact that we're not using our hands, that's being in prison as far as I'm concerned. You start with one seed. Trust the powers and the magic and the alchemy that we have in connection to this planet. Free your mind and your ass will follow. we're not trained to live in the present. Everything you do is in the future. Everything. So how do you know when you're successful? We're trained to be on the hamster wheel. In the future, I'm running to the future. I'm clawing to the future. The seduction is in the soil. It keeps you right there in the present because there's always something that could be done. And the colors, and the quiet, of just being up that early and seeing the change from dusk to dawn. And most people don't enjoy the journey, and they get there and they're like, "Is that all there is? Is it really? Is this what this is?" Once you're exposed to a lot of this, you don't lose it. It's in you forever. One seed revolution. This is what I want to still stand after I'm gone. This garden. The bottom line is I want people to realize that you can change your life. And it doesn't have to be the life that everybody else is living.
The poet Marge Piercy affirms, "Live as if you liked yourself, and it may happen. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we're going to live for a long time, not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes." Some of my earliest memories are shaped by harvest season, for I grew up in a family of gardeners. As the story goes, when my father was young and his family moved from the city to a house in the suburbs, his father had to truck soil in as the earth beneath the new subdivision was mostly sand. I didn't know if my grandfather grew vegetables on the porch of their city apartment, but I do know that the garden in this new place took up most of the backyard, and my father got an immersive education in planting, tending, and picking your own food. So when I was very young and my family lived in a trailer park, which did not give much of a yard, my father struck a deal with a neighbor who owned a nearby field and used a large sunlit corner for a garden. We didn't have our own land, but come summer and fall, we had tomatoes and beans and cucumbers and zucchini. The vegetables my father grew were not like the ones I saw in the supermarket, as they were strange shapes and sometimes had different colors, but they had the most incredible flavor. I remember the ritual of canning baskets of fresh tomatoes so we could enjoy their sweetness in winter, waiting to hear the pop of the seal forming on the mason jar. I remember learning to compost my food scraps, thinking every family did this. Visits to my friends' houses taught me this was not true. Sometimes the harvest was so plentiful we couldn't eat or can all of it, so we shared it with friends and sometimes strangers. One of my earliest memories was riding with my parents to a nearby apartment building to drop off a paper bag of vegetables to a family I didn't know. "Why are we going here?" I asked. My mother explained that this family didn't have much money, so we were sharing some of our food from the garden with them. I still don't know how my parents knew these people or learned of their need, but this visit became its own lesson in part of a larger truth I was beginning to understand. We buy our food from the supermarket, but that's not where food comes from. It comes from the earth, and it's brought into being through knowledge shared across generations and lots of hard work and good luck as deer and rabbits and bugs like this food too. And weather is always beyond our control. And the yield from our efforts is not ours alone, but meant to feed community. If you've been watching this pulpit channel for a while, you know that I did not inherit the green thumb of the paternal side of my family. But even though gardening and reliably keeping houseplants alive is not part of my everyday life, I'm so grateful for a childhood that taught me the meaning of growing our own food. These lessons were not only practical, but spiritual. My grandfather was a man of few words, but through his lifetime of gardening, he said so much about the stewardship of land and tribe and how sharing food can be a love language. He had a spiritual bond with the earth that neither he nor anyone who knew him could put into words. The summer afternoon, he died of a heart attack. My father and I just sat in my grandparents' backyard in silence, companioned by Grampy's bean poles and tomato plants. I knew my grandfather was gone, but sitting by his garden allowed me to connect with his presence a little longer. I know my family's not alone in feeling a spiritual connection to the earth. I chose to reflect on how we produce our food as the focus of today's Earth Day service, but with such a service would be fitting any day, any Sunday here at the Winchester Unitarian Society. Environmental responsibility is 1/3 of our congregation's mission, and our Green Sanctuary team is large, proactive, and engaged. When I ask people, whether they're newcomers here or longtime members, what feeds their spirit, so often the answer is nature. So it does not surprise me that this year's WSEG service trip is dedicated to supporting communities securing, preparing, and serving food, recognizing food security as a justice issue. Nor am I surprised that there is so much overlap between this congregation and a new local initiative, Gardens for Good. Organized by Fred Yen, the father of the Winchester Farmers Market, and other community leaders, Gardens for Good invites local homeowners to surrender some of their yard to growing vegetables. Volunteers tend the gardens, and the harvest is given to organizations providing food to people in need. As Yen wrote in a recent email, after considering light and ground conditions and consulting with the wishes of property owners, the decision is made for what crops will be planted in specific yards. The crops are chosen from the list that the pantries provide. We'll provide the seeds and get the seeds started. When we harvest the produce, we'll clean and prepare them for distribution for free to the Council of Social Concern, Enka Food Pantry, and Crawford Memorial Methodist Food Pantry. As part of our April Love and Action event, some of us, Patty Shepard, Sandy Thompson, Maida Rodriguez-Howard, Naomi Magnoni, Jeremiah Fowler, Claudia Mitchell, and Vanessa Lindsay, among others, were part of a small army of strangers who showed up at a local home on a rainy Saturday to turn a suburban backyard into a tilled and fenced garden. We are already in conversation about turning some of the land here at WUS into one of the Gardens for Good sites. This is a simple yet countercultural idea. I recently learned from Mary Reynolds' book, We Are the Ark, returning our gardens to their true nature through acts of restorative kindness, that the creation and maintenance of a lawn began as a status symbol, a way of communicating that the landowner is so wealthy they can grow decorative plants instead of needing every square foot to produce food. Of course, in today's society, the poor rarely have any land at all, and most people are dependent on grocery stores. So I love the idea of reimagining the affluent suburban lawn and cultivating the earth around our homes to produce food not for our pleasure, but because people in our community are hungry. Ron Finley's leadership featured in this morning's meditation echoes some of the ethos of Gardens for Good. Finley shares more about the origins of turning Los Angeles parkways into gardens in another interview found on his website. As Finley's business and community struggled in the economic collapse of 2008, he noticed that the tomatoes in the store near his house had a sticker on them, warning customers that they might be coated with shellac. He was horrified that a chemical he used in woodworking could be used on his food. When he drove to other stores in wealthier neighborhoods, he did not see this kind of warning on the ample and luscious produce. His conclusion was, all of this is by design, and we need to change the design. Ron Finley is just one of a number of leaders of color challenging how institutionalized racism impacts who grows food and how food is distributed. Another is Leah Penniman, author of Farming While Black and co-founder of Soul Fire Farm in upstate New York. Penniman challenges the phrase food desert, a neighborhood with little access to abundant and high-quality food, as deserts are naturally occurring. Penniman uses the phrase food apartheid, affirming that we live under an organized system of unequal food distribution. Penniman cites the historical context for this system, stating in a 2019 article in The Sun, quote, "The current food system was built on the labor of 12.5 million skilled African farmers who were taken by force from their homeland. Europeans did not know tropical and subtropical agriculture, so they kidnapped experts to build the sugar, cotton, and tobacco plantations of the Caribbean and the US South. That forced labor performed on stolen land became the basis for the wealth of this nation." Unquote. We know that emancipation led to the unjust system of sharecropping. When many Black farmers moved north, Southern landowners developed the migrant agriculture program, thereby exploiting Latino laborers in ways enslaved and disempowered Black farmers knew too well. Penniman argues that land and food sovereignty are essential to physical, economic, and spiritual freedom, or in short, to free ourselves, we must feed ourselves. Soul Fire Farm has a few core objectives. The first is producing food. Soul Fire sells farm shares on a sliding scale, so in the end, 1/3 of their yield goes to low-income people. 15 shares are at no cost, benefiting refugees, immigrants, and those impacted by incarceration. The second is to serve as a training ground for people of color seeking to become farmers. It is noteworthy that the production of the food and the vocational training are done through practices of sustainable agriculture, community rituals, and indigenous African spirituality, helping participants to, quote, reclaim a connection to the land severed by centuries of trauma and oppression. For in the words of Black farmer Chris Bolden Newsom, the field was the scene of the crime. Penniman recalls visiting mentors in her ancestral Ghana, women leaders called Manye. She affirms, they were incredulous when they heard that in the US, people planted seeds and did not sing over them, or pour libation, or pray, or make offerings. And yet Americans expected these seeds to grow and create nourishing food. They were completely baffled. No wonder y'all are sick. African spirituality assumes that the earth is alive, and if you treat the earth as lifeless material, your society will be sick, if not physically, then sick in emotional and spiritual ways. The agricultural practices on Soul Fire Farm are also indigenous, covering the soil with organic matter, just as a forest creates a rich floor of nutrients, and planting without the use of tilling. These practices not only prevent the release of carbon into the atmosphere, but sequester carbon into the soil. Feeding the earth allows the earth to feed us, as stripping the earth of its nutrients through tilling and heavy chemical use deprives us, the recipients of its yield, what we need to survive and thrive. As I learn about Soul Fire Farm, I can't help but think about Robin Wall Kimmerer and her work, as illustrated in Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. Wall Kimmerer is an Indigenous woman, steeped in her tribe's knowledge, and also trained in Western bioscience. If you have somehow not encountered Braiding Sweetgrass yet, it reads like poetry and scripture combined. One thing that stands out for me in Braiding Sweetgrass is Robin Wall Kimmerer's summation of a study examining the impact of human harvesting of sweetgrass. One patch was left alone, while the patch right next to it was regularly harvested through traditional methods. The result was that the harvested patch fared better than the one neglected by humans. Wall Kimmerer concludes what her native wisdom has long affirmed: there is a role for humans in nature's cycles. We are meant to feed from the earth's abundance. Yet in so many ways, we have lost our spiritual bond and our understanding that part of our role is feeding the earth in return through practices that help the soil stay alive and thrive, or, at the very least, not poisoning the earth with pesticides and other chemicals. This Earth Day and every day, we are called to return to this healthy, balanced, mutual relationship, not just for the survival of the planet and our own species, but for the wholeness of our spirits. This is particularly true for those whose natural bonds with the land have been distorted and violated through centuries of enslavement, poverty, and migrant agriculture. After my family and I left our trailer and borrowed garden plot, we moved to a house with a large field behind it. Like my grandfather, one of the first things my father did was install a large and ambitious vegetable garden. I was still in elementary school. A lot has changed since then. By my family leaving the field alone, trees have slowly taken root and filled the space. So now there's no longer a field, but a forest. Perhaps without any noble or conscious philosophy behind it, my father played his role in not just being a gardener, but, as Mary Reynolds might say, also a guardian, allowing nature to follow its own cycles without aggressive human management. Last summer, I went to visit my father. He still tends a vegetable garden between the forest and the house, but the skill and determination of the groundhogs has diminished his excitement for this endeavor. But my father is enthusiastic about the garden in front, a large section of what would be a front lawn, but instead filled with plants attractive to butterflies. He told me about some of the challenges of getting this garden going, one being that the soil in his front yard was not sandy enough. So through some cosmic full circle moment, he hired someone to deliver sand to his yard, just as his father ordered some soil to begin his backyard planting decades ago. The beautiful flowers and plants and the butterflies they feed as they migrate through my family's small patch of land, tended by my father, the guardian, are likely enthusiastic about this development too. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
Our weekly offering is an opportunity of dedication, an invitation to live our values through acts of generosity. In this way, the offering is a spiritual practice, a collective affirmation of our shared values and our commitment to the mission of this liberal religious congregation. This morning, we share our gifts with FoodLink, whose mission is to create a more equitable food system throughout Greater Boston by rescuing and distributing high-quality, customized food to under-resourced communities and by advocating for systems of change. Here are the different ways you can donate. Those in the sanctuary may give cash, checks, or donate electronically. Text to the number in your order of service or visit our website under the Giving page. If you are visiting for the first time, either in person or online, you are our guest. In-person attendees can find a physical visitor card in the pew rack in front of you. Please complete it and put it in the collection plate. Information about how to give online and how to complete the virtual visitor card will soon be shared with live stream attendees through text on your screen. And now the offering will be generously given and gratefully received.
Those who wish to do so are invited to join in the unison affirmation. We gather not for ourselves alone, but to use our common power to build a beloved community within and beyond these walls. We create and affirm to make justice flourish, to practice compassion. Please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing our closing hymn, number 163 in your gray hymnal.
Action on behalf of life transforms. Because the relationship between self and the world is reciprocal, as we work to heal the earth heals us. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. Choose joy over despair, because joy is what the earth gives daily, and we must return the gift. Go in peace. Amen.
Please join me in Harris for reciting together the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. This service has ended, but our life of service continues. Good luck to the members of the youth group going on their service trip. Let's continue the conversation in the Sims room. Thank you.